Cam video showing the traffic stop there, the body cam video showing the struggle and the chase that led up to the shooting. That video did not show the shooting itself. They showed a home surveillance video that didn't show the shooting, but then they showed a cell phone video from right outside the car that was involved in the traffic stop. That did give us the best picture of what exactly happened. Fox 17's Marisa Oberly was inside the news conference as it happened, got a chance to ask questions of the chief and the other officials there. Marisa, give us an idea of what you heard inside that news conference and the tone coming out of it.
Well, Josh, we heard quite a few new developments. Like you mentioned, we saw those 4 videos. Like you mentioned, we saw the different angles from the officer's body-worn camera, from the officer's dash cam video, as well as home surveillance video from a neighbor who lived across the street, and then video from the passenger in the car from his cell phone. And it was that cell phone video that really gave that clear picture as to what happened during this incident. That was when we actually saw the shooting itself. As you mentioned, 2 of those angles did not show the shooting. The home surveillance video angle showed the shooting, but it was too far away. That passenger cell phone video showed the up to or a good chunk of the shooting, including the shooting itself. And the Grand Rapids police chief, he says that is why they have waited, more than a week to release some of this video. He said that from day one, they had 3 of those angles, but they did not have that cell phone video from that passenger. And so that's why they wanted to wait. He said that provided the proper context. And that is when, like I said, you can see it. And in that video, if we walk you through it, you can see the officer pulling over Patrick Lyoya for a registration tab issue with his car. The officer gets out of his cruiser, and you can also see Patrick getting out of his car as well. And as the officer approaches him, he asks him to stay in his car, but Patrick stays out. Patrick then appears to be a little bit confused as to what is going on. You heard him asking the officer, "Why are you stopping me? What is going on?" And the officer tells him there's an issue with your registration tabs. And so from there, the officer asked him to get his license. And so Patrick opens up the car door, and for a few seconds, you kind of see everyone just standing around. And then Patrick starts to take a few steps over to his side. And that is when the officer approaches him and tries to take him into custody. There's a little bit of a struggle. Patrick gets out of the officer's arm, runs around the car, and then they were in a neighbor's yard. From there, Patrick is taken down to the ground. You actually saw the officer kick him a few times, and then trying to get him into custody again. You can hear him multiple times saying, stop resisting, stop resisting. And Patrick is then saying, okay, okay, okay. From that first struggle that we had, you then saw Patrick and the officer get up. They're still kind of moving over into the yard next to them. And from there, that is when a taser is deployed at least twice. However, according to Chief Winstrom, the taser never hit or made contact with Patrick's body. It never made contact. And in at least one of the angles, you can also see Patrick trying to grab the taser. His hand is on there. You hear the officer telling him, let go of the taser, let go of the taser. Again, you hear Patrick saying, okay, okay, that back and forth dialogue between them. And then during that cell phone video, like I said, that has been really key in helping us understand what exactly happened during that incident on April 4th. During that, you then see them go into another yard of a neighbor, and from there they are on the ground. Patrick is lying face down and clearly struggling with the officer. The officer is struggling to get a hold of him, and from there, that is when the officer pulls out his gun, and within seconds he fires a shot. And according to Chief Eric Winstrom, that shot was fired in the back of Patrick's head. That is something we have heard from the family, where that aligns with the family's account that they have told us over the past few weeks. So that is what the video showed here today. It was quite a bit. We saw 4 different angles, but in all, the interactions seemed to last, a few minutes from start to finish. Chief Winstrom said when the officer and Patrick were going back and forth, fighting for the taser, that interaction seemed to last about 90 seconds. So those are all new details that we saw here today. During this press conference, we did ask if the officer will be named at all during this process, because that is something we still do not know. Chief Winstrom says at this time he will not be named, citing the ongoing investigation into what happened. He said we don't usually name suspects, so we are not going to do the same for this officer at this time.
All right, and Marisa, you discussed the chief addressing whether or not he would name the police officer involved. There were a lot of questions asked of the chief. We heard you asking questions as well. Was there any indication of what his viewpoint and his perception of what happened in that officer-involved shooting? Did he give an idea of what he thinks of what happened?
Yes and no. He called the situation tragic and unfortunate. You know, even the city manager, all of the officials that were up here today called this a dark day in the city's history, you know, adding that we are now one of the cities who is a part of this issue with policing in America. However, when it comes to what he thinks should happen to the officer, or, you know, kind of the next steps, he cited that ongoing investigation by Michigan State Police. He said that is not ethical for me to comment on at this time. You know, we tried to ask him, was this in line with Grand Rapids Police, the Grand Rapids Police Department's use of force policy? He just said, I cannot answer this at this time. So while he sympathized with the situation, he could not, you know, give us an idea as to what he thinks these next steps should be in this case.
All right, Marisa, thanks. And the chief did say leading up to the release of the video that he would try to provide context associated with this officer-involved shooting, but he could only go into it so far. Now, there have been a lot of emotions associated with this. We've seen the emotions out here on the street in front of Grand Rapids Police Headquarters. We've even seen the emotion inside that news conference. The city manager said